by decree of the President of Ukraine for outstanding personal contribution into strengthening interstate cooperation, supporting state sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine, the Order of Freedom is awarded to Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada.
Great honor for me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky.
What if I told you that the upcoming election in Canada in 2025 could be postponed? Or maybe even cancelled altogether? It sounds crazy, right? Could that be why, despite losing two crucial by-elections in classically liberal strongholds, Justin Trudeau and company seem relatively chill and not concerned at all?
But ultimately, aren't you just avoiding an election out of your own self-interest? There isn't a poll out there right now, that doesn't show your party would lose and lose substantially.
Look, I mean, if you look at what we've actually been doing in the House of Commons, we've been trying to continue to advance the meaningful policies that Canadians are looking for us to work on. I mean, Canadians don't want an election right now.
Well, my friends, in these strange times, nothing's impossible. If you had told me 10 years ago that we would have humanoid robots and artificial intelligence, decriminalize fentanyl, crystal meth, crack cocaine, and heroin, multiple attempts on a former president, locking down the entire world over a flu, and freezing the bank accounts of people who were protesting a mandatory injection, not to mention a deep divide over basic human biology.
Okay. What is a woman? Can you tell me what a woman is? Because clearly you're really confused.
And alien sightings. And I would have said, you are absolutely crazy. But I guess 2024 is the gift that just keeps on giving.
Happy Canada Day, everybody. Welcome to Ottawa, Canada.
Canada mostly has a world reputation as being normal and decent and progressive and morally upright and thoughtful and conscientious and all of those nice words.
But Canadians aren't as, terrible as we are. They are, as a general rule, polite and friendly people.
And there's still a small minority of people who vote left who agree with that sentiment. But in reality, there are multiple burgeoning black swan events all over the world right now that Canada is either indirectly or directly involved in. Whether that be the war in Europe, or the war in the Middle East, or the monkeypox pandemic.
Canada is being called to do its part to help stem the spread of mpox after the World Health Organization declared the virus a global public health emergency.
Is Canada's democracy as unshakable as we may think it is? In fact, Ukraine was supposed to have an election in March of 2024, but they've suspended it indefinitely because of the war. And although this seems like something that's unthinkable, several countries postponed elections because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Sri Lanka, North Macedonia, Bolivia, Ethiopia, and even Hong Kong. But those countries are all the way over there. That could never happen to us, right? Well, not so fast. Elections actually have been postponed once in Canada during World War II. The 19th Canadian Parliament, elected in 1940, extended its term beyond the normal 5 years due to wartime conditions. This was done through constitutional means, specifically by amending the British North America Act, 1867, now the Constitution Act, 1867. The term was extended by 1 year, delaying the federal election until 1945. Point being, not only is this more common than we might think it is, there's actually precedent for it in Canadian history and in Canadian times of war. Section 4, Provision 2 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms states, "In time of real or apprehended war, invasion or insurrection, a House of Commons may be continued by Parliament, and a Legislative Assembly may be continued by the Legislature beyond 5 years if such continuation is not opposed by the votes of more than 1/3 of the members of the House of Commons or the Legislative Assembly, as the case may be." So looking at the current seating plan of the members of the House of Parliament, it's actually possible that the Liberals could call to suspend the elections in 2025. However, for that to happen, Canada would have to be at war. And Canada isn't officially at war just yet. In mid-September, members of the Biden administration and the Keir Starmer government met together to announce their joint support of Ukraine using long-range missiles to strike strategic targets in Russia.
The United States is committed to standing with you to help Ukraine as it defends against Russia's onslaught and aggression. Putin will not prevail in this war.
Russian President Vladimir Putin warned, basically immediately after this statement, that if the Ukraine carried out this attack into civilian targets in Russia with the green light of NATO, that Russia would consider itself at war with these NATO countries.
An ominous warning is coming from the Kremlin as Russian President Vladimir Putin makes his plans for Ukraine clear. Putin says Western nations that allow Kyiv to use longer-range weapons against targets inside Russia would effectively put Ukraine's international partners at war.
And that would mean rather than Canada being in a proxy war with Russia by sending millions of dollars to encourage gender-inclusive minesweeping efforts, Canada would quite quickly be in a full-out war with Russia. In fact, I don't know if the general public actually realizes just how close we were to a full-out nuclear war with Russia just a couple weeks ago. So if NATO was suddenly at war with Russia, that would mean Canada was suddenly at war with Russia, which would mean technically there would be a declaration of a national emergency, and maybe, just maybe, Section 4, Article 2 could be enacted. Could the Liberals be using war to their advantage? Or could they be playing this big game of chicken with Russia, knowing that there's an election coming up in 2025? Is that why the Liberals, who are losing by-elections in traditionally Liberal strongholds and are tanking in any poll that's worth anything, is that why they're so calm right now and not concerned at all? Is that why we're seeing all this rhetoric about how Canadians don't necessarily dislike Liberal policies, they're just frustrated?
In Canada and elsewhere in the world, that people often feel unsatisfied with where they are in life. However, having campaigned in La Salle, Verdun, et Mar, I heard very little dissatisfaction with the policies that we're putting into place to help grow the economy, to support the middle class, fight against climate change, and all the things that people in general very strongly support.
And I heard you make those comments this week, and with great respect, they were confusing to me. Essentially, that people like your party and what your government is doing, but they don't like their own lot in life. Isn't that kind of blaming the voter for the outcome?
And could this be something that's also advantageous to the Democrats? I mean, if NATO's at war, there's no elections, right? It's not safe to have elections. And that's a precedent that's already being set by Ukraine. That's crazy, right? There's no way that the United States and Canada could be playing this game of chicken with Russia for the sake of re-election. Could they? I mean, it's probably just a coincidence that the state-funded Canadian Broadcasting Corporation ran an article about this potential scenario in 2019. It's also probably just a coincidence that we've been seeing a united front from the United States, Canada, and the UK equating basically anything center-right, probable Russian propaganda, and how we need to step up in our defense to protect our democracy. I understand it's a highly unlikely scenario, but it's not an impossible scenario, and after the last 5 years, I think anything's on the table. It wouldn't be the first time that this Trudeau administration has used rare emergency powers to benefit them during an election. In fact, just a few short years ago, when it wasn't safe to hug your mom or your grandma, and everyone was supposed to stay home and stay indoors and keep 6 feet and wear masks, etc., the same administration called an election.
In the French language debate, Liberal leader Justin Trudeau was repeatedly attacked over calling an election while Canada is still dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. A recent Ipsos poll for Global News found the election is increasingly controversial. 68% of Canadians now agree there should not be an election during the pandemic.
So, anything can happen. Obviously, if this Trudeau administration found a way to suspend the upcoming election, people would be choked.
What I did!
It looks like at this point, if there was an election today, Pierre Poilievre and his Conservatives would have a majority government. People are tired of Trudeau, and that's a drastic understatement. I'd imagine that there'd be mass protests and civil unrest. However, this wouldn't be the first time that this Trudeau government, even in recent history, has had to deal with mass protests and civil unrest. So they've got some experience in that department.
Fight and protest! Use the fight and protest! Hey girl, you alright? Got shot. Take care. Bring her out, come on.
Maybe I've got a little bit of pandemic shell shock, but the idea that any government is going to respect my rights? I don't buy it anymore. I've been trying to talk about this on my Instagram, but I've been dealing with a ton of censorship, so I've decided to start a Substack. I'll put a link to it in the description of this video, but essentially I'm going to go deeper on subjects that I can't go as deep on YouTube or on Instagram because of censorship reasons. So I'll be compiling lists there of stories that you might have missed, and also some original journalism from me and some friends of mine. Not only that, it's a great way for us to stay in touch if for one day I'm not allowed to use this platform anymore. So please, if you can, sign up for the Substack, and I promise you won't regret it. Also, if you want to support this small channel, I've got merch available on my website. All my haters don't pray. That's a fact. And I'm also grateful to receive super chats, and I'll start reading the super chat comments on the channel. Remember guys, there's no reason to be afraid, just be vigilant, and the truth will set you free in these strange times. By the way, who are all these New York billionaire hedge fund managers who are supporting Kamala Harris?